Welcome back to Turning Hard Times to Good Times. I'm your host, Jay Taylor, and I'm really pleased to have with me once again David Wolfin. David's been with us several times in the past, so I won't go through his bio word by word. Just to tell you that he is the son of a miner, an entrepreneur. His father, who I've known for many, many years, brought David up in the mining industry, and David had to learn everything about mining, and from all the underground mucking and exploration and fundraising and everything else. So he brings with him a tremendous background, and I think it is really benefiting the shareholders of Avino very well. I think he's done a splendid job, so I'm really pleased to have him with us. Avino is trading, you buy it in the United States and in Canada under the symbol ASM. There's only 37.7 million shares outstanding, and it's selling, I checked a little while ago, at about $1, a little over $1, $1.01, I think, in New York, in U.S. dollars. And so that gives it a market cap of only about $38 million, despite the fact that the company reached record silver production last year, over 3 million ounces of silver equivalent ounces, I should say, because there's copper and gold in that mix as well. And despite the fact that it is embarking on production from a high-grade gold mine known as the Braylorn mine, a famous mine in the past that is being put back into production in British Columbia. So I think there's an awful lot of reasons to consider this a very undervalued stock. I'm very pleased to have David with me. Again, thanks for joining me, David.
Oh, thanks for having me, Jay. It's a pleasure to be here.
Always good to talk to you. It's always good to talk to successful people. Lord knows we've had enough people in this industry over the last few years. It's been very, very difficult sledding, but in spite of the fact, 2015, 2014, horrible years for our industry, lots of juniors going out of business, lots of them hibernating and basically shutting down operations. But you guys have been growing dramatically. Last year, you increased your production by 116% to 3,020,348 silver equivalent ounces, David. Congratulations on that. And how did you do it? How did you manage to boost sales and production so dramatically?
We've been growing organically. So we started with the first mine on the property, the San Gonzalo mine, and declared commercial production in 2014, and used that cash flow to rehab the Avino mine, and we brought that online the beginning of last year. It's still considered development phase, but we're developing on the vein, so the vein is able to feed an expanded mill. So we expanded the mill a couple times, started in 2014 at 250 tons per day, and now we're producing at 1,500 tons per day. So that's how we've done it.
I noticed in the statistics put out that your copper production grew very dramatically last year. How do you account for that? Is that something
that's from the Avino mine?
From the Avino,
copper
okay.
There. It's a big system. Right now, we're more than halfway through the development plan. We're putting in 7 levels on the Avino mine from below where we left off mining in 2001. And right now, we're drifting about 450 meters long, and it's averaging 40 to 50 meters wide. So it's like it's a massive stockwork system. This is what the Spaniards found 500 years ago, and we're still mining on it. It's really, really big, and so there's minerals of a lot of copper in there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
David, is this thing extend to depth? Do your geologists believe?
Absolutely. We don't know below our current area. I mean, we drilled it off between 2006 and 8. We did 30,000 meters drilling around the property, but a lot of it was concentrated here, and that gave us the resource of about 4.2 million indicated tons and 3 million tons inferred. So we felt that's enough to justify getting it up and running, because we knew it was going to take a while. It was flooded. Because the open pit on top acted like a funnel, so there was 1 million cubic meters of water we pumped out, and acid generating. So we had to treat it. We built a water treatment plant and treated that water and supplied the water to the local communities. So they're really happy with us. Yeah.
Water is a rarity there, is it? A little shortage of water?
Yeah, it's a farming area, but they've been through a few years of drought, so they're really happy to get water from us.
Well, David, you're developing seven levels below. You say, can you increase the production from Avino from those various levels, or are there bottlenecks in terms of
we're looking at it right now because the system is so wide and so long. We're doing a long hole drilling, a sublevel caving, which is a cheap form of mining, and we could feed a much larger mill. So we're running the numbers right now to see what it would cost to do another expansion, and I don't have that information at this time.
Right. All right. Well, that's something we'll want to know about in the future for sure. You did show an accounting profit in 2015, a year, as I mentioned, was just a horrible year. But yet I noticed that it was the top line growth was not. In fact, I think it might have actually declined by a little bit, despite the fact that you increased your production by 116%. That is the silver equivalent production.
Sure.
Now, I know prices have declined. Prices were lower probably in 2015 overall. Copper especially was low, and gold and silver as well. But could you account for a decline of that magnitude in light of the fact that you increased your production by 116%?
Yeah, it's simple. I mean, Avino is not considered revenue at this stage because it's still in development phase. We're close to declaring commercial production, but we didn't want to be premature because originally we started with a 20 to 24-month mine plan of development. And so that's putting in the haulage ramp that's drifting along the veins, preparing it all for mining. Mining is starting very shortly right now, and so we'll be close to declaring commercial production this year, and I can't say when, but I'm hoping, in the first half of this year, and so then all of the last year the recovery of exploration and development expense will become revenue. So last year was $21.5 million.
Wow! So $21.5 million that doesn't show up on the top line revenue line growth, right?
Exactly.
That's just not there. So, in fact, I guess you could really say that the performance was better than it looked, probably.
Absolutely.
Yeah, a lot better than it looked.
We didn't want to prematurely declare commercial production for the revenue aspect because the costs are higher during development phase. Once you're mining, then you no longer have those development costs. So we want to keep a low cost of production. So we're just being patient, that's all. And if you look at our costs for San Gonzalo, we're one of the lowest in the industry. I mean, $6.61 U.S. is cash costs, and then $9.49 U.S. all-in sustaining. So you see, the all-in sustaining is basically overhead. Our overhead's smaller than anyone else in the industry because I work for my father, and he doesn't, how stingy he was, so we don't have a big staff here. We're doing it with consultants, and we're just doing it, being patient and growing organically. Right.
Well, I love it. As a shareholder, I love it, David. This is I might add that the Wolfin family, of course, are considerable shareholders in this company. I'm quite sure, right?
Absolutely.
So your interests are aligned with those of the shareholders, which I think is so important. It's always one thing that investors should take a look at before they buy shares, to try to figure out if the management's interests are aligned with their own. Well, as you mentioned, you did reduce your costs, so and I noticed that Q4 was even lower than the average for last year. I would imagine that once that development phase at the Avino is out of the way, your overall cost might decline even more?
Potentially. Yeah. And if we do another expansion, obviously you got the economies of scale that could bring down costs further. And then we've got the tailings project. I mean, the oxide tailings project, we haven't been able to advance that because it was an active tailings dam. We've already applied to build a new tailings facility on the other side of the property. Mm-hmm. There's 2 permits required. We've received the first one, so we're just waiting for the second permit, and then we'll build the new tailings facility. We'll decommission the current tailings facility. Then we can move that project forward. But we haven't been sitting idle. We've actually started drilling the lower oxide bench because it's tiered, so it's exposed. So we put a bunch of holes in there in anticipation of doing the top portion when it dries out after we decommission it. And then we'll make it a reserve, and then we can make a construction decision on that. and that will be the cheapest form of mining. It'll be a similar operation to gold,
Yes, I'm very familiar with that, yes.
Heap leach and Merrill-Crowe precipitation plant. It'll bring our costs down even further, and that project will throw off another 1.5 million silver equivalent ounces for 5 years.
Oh, wow. So you could be up 4 million, 4.5, 5 million ounces of gold, silver.
That's our goal. I mean, I'm not promising the timing on this because, there's unknowns with permitting and that sort of thing. So,
sure.
But that's our goal.
Yeah. David, one of the things I appreciate, as I just mentioned, is the lack of dilution. I mean, that's what kills investors, long-term investors anyway. You arranged a very good financing with Samsung, in which you're selling your concentrate. That's the concentrate from San Gonzalo, right?
Avino.
Or from Avino, I'm sorry, which has that copper and
gold.
But
they're interested in everything, so we're in discussions with them.
Well, you have a good relationship with them then. I mean, you rate, but again, how much money did you borrow in that way from them? $10
million US, and
how far are you from repaying that?
It's like an off-take agreement, so it gets netted off deliveries. So that's how it works. That's how the repayment schedule is.
All right, and so. When might that be concluded?
And the Braylorn mine as collateral. There's no lien or anything on Avino.
Oh, good.
And they were the ones that steered us in the negotiation, the sales guys, because they wanted us to ask for more money. And we didn't feel comfortable. We said, let's start smaller.
Yeah.
And so they're dying for us to grow because they're sort of dipping their toe in the water in this business of securing it from the source. And they liked that we were a small company, that we wanted to grow. They didn't want to go to a big company or someone that's pre-production. They wanted someone that has production that can grow. And so they are dying to give us more money. They want more copper, gold, and silver.
They want that concentrate for their industrial purposes.
Yeah, they don't want to rely on open markets. They want to secure it from the source. They want to know that it's a safe place, that they've done their due diligence. It's a lot of due diligence they did. They hired SRK Engineering out of Denver and sent them down. So it's, we're light years ahead of anyone else trying to build this relationship with them because they have to go through all that due diligence, and they've turned a lot of companies away. They just say, we're happy with you and we want to grow with you. So they're being cautious and patient and growing their business slowly in this regard.
Well,
originally they approached me and they said, Apple and Intel are promoting, they know where the source of their raw materials come from, and that they're not using slave labor or that type of thing. And Samsung said that they wanted to do the same thing because they don't want one day there to be a boycott on their products for bad press or something.
Yeah. Well, I would think that investors for Avino should also take additional comfort from the fact that they've done all that due diligence and obviously are comfortable with the with the quality of your assets and your production facilities. So they're interested also in the Braylorn, perhaps, and let's talk about the Braylorn.
They steered us to use that as the collateral because we didn't want to collateralize Avino for only $10 million. It's worth far more. So. Yeah. So they're very transparent and very good to work with. They're a good company. So with Braylorn, it's been delayed in reopening because of the new rules and regulations coming out since Mount Poly. So last year we raised the dam, the tailings dam, and then they asked us to file a new mine closure plan, which we did, and we're waiting for comments. So it's slow in hearing from the government because they're overwhelmed by dealing with mining in British Columbia. So we've been lobbying them. We've also done some of their work for them by initiating discussions with First Nations, and we've got a great rapport with them. Since Mount Poly had closed, there was a college on Vancouver Island called North Island Community College, and they have an underground mining program, and they used to send those graduates to Mount Poly for practical experience. And so they called us up and said, we can't do that anymore. Can we send them to Braylorn? And a light bulb went on in my head. I said, I'm going to introduce them to the First Nations up in the Lillooet Mining District, and we did. And they they secured a cohort and got funding from the provincial government, and 12 students just graduated 2 weeks ago. So I went up for the presentation, and the elders were very, very complimentary of us that we initiated discussions with them, and we weren't mandated. We went up there and said we're introducing ourselves and want to help you.
Right, exactly, and you weren't mandated to do it.
And then Diane Howell at the Ministry of Mines, we told her that, and she says, well, you're doing my work for me because that'll speed up your permitting process because they're supposed to consult the First Nations, and they're short-staffed.
Oh, well, I mean, it's a win-win, David, and again, I appreciate the kind of extra efforts that you're making along these lines, and I think it's very, very good. I just have to ask you, I see you did a small financing, $800,000 US at $1. Is that just to make sure you have a cushion here as you go, as you develop?
Portfolio manager out of Chicago that we've been talking to for they're a deep value investor type model, and we encourage these type of players to come to the mine. So he sent an analyst to the mine. They loved it, and then they made us an offer to position some of their accounts with the stock, and there's no warrant, there was no discount, low commission. So these are the type of investors we want. So we agreed, and we did it.
All right, David, we're just basically out of time. Anything else you'd like to add? What can you tell our listeners to really impress on them the need to pay attention to what you're doing and perhaps pick up some shares?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the stock's really going to perform well this year once we declare commercial production at the Avino, and so keep an eye on that. We've got some exploration going on there, and then probably the announcement of Braylon reopening, and so we've got good news coming.
Lots of good news, and you never know, you might have some news on the tailings project as well. So
absolutely.
It is an exciting story, David. I want to thank you very much for taking your time to share that with our listeners, and we look forward to talking to you again sometime in the not-too-distant future.
Thank you very much.